Alright, guys. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so first of all, I would like to, make a little, you know, talk a little bit about what this video will be about, and also to let you really understand the main purpose of this video, right? So this record it will be about the review. It's about a review on the trades I took on Monday and also on Tuesday. Right, on Tuesday, even though I did not take any trade, right, so I still have the reason why I did not take any trade on Tuesday, right. So everything, uh, right. So that's it. So it will majorly be about just the review and mainly about the those two trades I took on Monday and why I took those trades. Right. So I'm gonna recap on those those trades and also explain the reason behind everything I did during that Monday and what I looked out for on even on BTC too. I'm gonna talk, but for the sake of this video, I'm trying to like I'm gonna try to make this record very very not too not like just gonna try to make it like 30 minutes or even later than that, right? Because I will really need to break down my bias, how I understand market structure, and how I tend to take my trade. And example will be the trades I took on Monday, and I'll just use that to break that down and also do the review on those trades. And also um and after that, yeah, do just the review. And also that's it, right? That's it. So that's the main purpose of this record, right? Because this is how I do my journaling, right? This is how I tend to, document my trade and every decision I made in the market. Every day I do a post-market analysis, right? I do a post after the pre-market analysis during my trading session, and when that is over, I tend to, do my post-market analysis to reflect on everything I did on that day to see what my decision was and what the outcome was and how and the lessons and everything I've learned from that experience, right? So that's it. This is how I do my journaling. I tend to, document my trade, and I will keep doing videos like this every day. I have a lot more videos, a lot more review about trades I took, right? But I just, feel like to bring this to you guys will really a lot of it will really make sense to you guys to also learn from my mistakes and to for us to keep growing, right? So I will just move down to the chart. Here on the screen is the trade, is the Euro USD sell position I took on Monday, right? I'm gonna start with Monday trade right before Tuesday. Just those two past days, right? I'm just gonna make review on those 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and also once done with that, just focus on today, right? Already is even about 1:30 something, right? So let me just go straight to the review and just walk you guys through the stuff. So here on the screen is the chart on Euro USD, right? This was the trade I took, right? And this was the trade I took. This was how it was, right? This was how it was, and this was on 5 minute time frame, right? And this is the second trade I took. This was on 1 minute time frame. And when I moved down to 1 minute time frame was when I tend to really understand what was going on in the market those during this time period, right? So that is so I'm just gonna move down to the trading view now and just walk you guys through the trades and just so we could just relate and flow together, right? So let's move to trading view now and just touch on this stuff. We have news by 1:30, right? Has it been released? Let's see. So this buy position is still valid, but it goes against the trend. But I'm talking about this, right? But this is not what we we're gonna talk about in this video, right? We're just gonna do review on the past days and what we did on those days, and just learn from that so we could know where we are at, so that we just that's how you grow, right? That's how you grow. So first of all, this is Euro USD chart. Okay, so I'm gonna first of all clean the chart, right? I'm gonna clean the chart first, right? After cleaning the chart and just start the analysis afresh for you guys to just follow up on how I do my analysis and how I understand the market structure and how I tend to take my trade, right? So that you guys can also learn from that, right? So let's just play the chart now. Let's play the chart. Is it's kind of noisy, right? Yeah. So this one will still remain back there, right? So this is it now. So on Monday, right? When was Monday? Like, I think I should just I think it's still cool this way. So on Monday, right? So what I did on Monday, let me just specify the Monday range, right? Just okay. Let me just use this to this was uh, last week. This is Monday. Okay. Monday. Okay, let me just use the daily time frame. Okay, this is Monday. Okay, this is Monday, and this is Monday, and it's Monday, and let's see, okay. Okay, let me not even do this, right? Let me just go straight to the analysis, right? Forget about all that. You understand what what I'm doing, right? Just so when I come up on chart on Monday, what I did was to observe the market structure. I actually start the market structure I actually start the analysis on the 4 hour time frame. Right, I start the analysis on the 4 hour time frame. And what I did on that 4 hour, right, is to observe the overall structure, the order flow, what the market, where the higher time frame structure is, and we are clearly on a bearish trend, right? We are clearly on a bearish trend, right? So after knowing that we are clearly on a bearish trend, what I tend to do next is to come down to the M15, right? Of course, we have this structure, we have all these internal structure range, right? So what I would do is to just observe this structure and use it to understand where we are currently at. So at this point, the structure I found interesting was this. This was the structure where I start my analysis on the M15. Coming down to the M15, of course, I see clearly that we are heavily bearish at this point, and even the higher time frame too is clearly bearish, right? So what I did was to mark out the recent structure range, right? What I did is to mark out the recent structure range, because that's the relevant point for us to look for entry, and just observe and just follow the market up and draw the until price takes out the structure, the recent structure range, right? Then we can now shift our buyers and expect bullish, right? So at this point we clearly see that we are heavily bearish at this point. This is where we are POS, right? The break of structure, right? And after that break of structure, we have this low, right? I'm gonna just mark that low out, right? We have this low. After that break of structure, we have this low, okay? We have this low. Since I'm on M15 time frame, right? I'm just gonna, level this. This is the low, right? The lower low, right? That's the lower low there, right? So I'm just gonna call this M15 big low. Sure. I'm just gonna call that M15 swing low, M15 swing low. And I call this weak because this is a target point for price, right? Lower low price will go up, comes down and break this low, right? So this low is weak in this instance, right? In this point, right? Until it goes up and take out the recent structure range, the strong eye that caused price to break this structure, then we can now call this a strong low. And there above the higher the higher eye now becomes the strong low, right? So we then wait for price to pull back for us to drive the bullish market, right? So but at this point we are bearish, we are not bullish. So what I would do is to I marked out the 15 minute swing low and also marked out the 15 minute swing high, which was this high, yeah, right, which was this high, yeah, which was this high, yeah. Yes, and that is strong high, 15 minutes strong high. So for price to remain bearish, these high has to be protected, right? Price has to, come back to a fine supply at this point and just go bearish, right? That's it. So what I always tend to do after marking out my recent structure range is to bring out a 52 to know where we are currently at. Since we are on a bearish trend and we see that on the in the structure, what I do next is to bring out my 52 and highlight from this high to this low. And that simply means that we are not expecting to sell at the discount range on this bearish market, right? We are not expecting to sell on the discount range. We are expecting to we are not expecting to sell on the discount range, right? We are expecting to sell on the premium range, right? When the price is premium, that's where we look out to sell, and that's where we will find our supply zone and also find our supply zone and you know wait for price to pushed up to that supply zone, and then we look for uh confirmation to go on the short move, right? So this is what I did. After that I bring out my 50 to highlight from the high to the low and see where price is. So on during Monday, on that Monday, what I see was price pulling back to this premium range and start pushing down, then coming down. This was about this was 8 8 8 a.m., right? 8 a.m. in the morning during London session open, right? So after that, during that time, after price mitigate this premium range, find supply at this point, price tend to come down again. Coming down again, price fell to break this week low, right? As price fell to break that week low, price tend to liquidate this low, right? Tend to liquidate this low, and after that liquidation, we have price start moving up, liquidate this low, and after that liquidation we start seeing price moving up. During the time I was doing the analysis, the price was currently at this point, right? I think this was about 9 to 10 9. This was about 9 a.m., right? 9 a.m., right? So the price was currently at this point during my analysis point. So what I do next was to observe what price was doing and to understand the context and the where price is, what price is trying to do, right? So what I do here is after observing and understanding what price did at this point to that cause price to start moving up this way. I tend to okay, after understanding that, what I did now was to mark out my supply zone, mark out my supply zone and still expect, since the trend is bearish, right? Since the trend is bearish, I'm still expecting bearish, right? Until the structure shifts and tell me, until the structure shifts to bullish, then that's where I can then shift my bias to bullish, right? But since the market was still within this high and low, I was still expecting bearish to still be in control of the price, right? So what I did was to mark out my supply zone, and this is where I mark out my supply zone. We are still on the M50, right? So this M15 is just to mark out my relevant point, my recent structure range, and then mark out my supply zone there. move down to lower time frame. When price get to that point, then I then move down to the lower time frame, like the 5 minutes or the 1 minute, to look for my entry confirmations to go on the bearish to sell, right? Since we are already on the bearish. So this was like my supply zone there. This was my supply zone, right? The whole block. This whole block was like my supply zone, right? This was my supply zone. Okay. I hope you guys, you know, are getting how I'm doing my analysis. This is how I create my structure, how I analyze the chart to trade, to go with the flow, right? So at this point, this was my supply zone, right? This was my supply zone. So I was patiently waiting for price to, pull back to this zone. Remember, I said that during the time I was doing my pre-market analysis, the price was currently at this point. And for me, like after marking out the swing highs and low, the 15-minute structure, and marked out my supply zone, what I do next there is to move down to 5 minute time frame, right? To move down to 5 minutes after. And why did I move down? What makes me to feel like, even though I've marked out my 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 key zones, like my recent structure range and my supply zone, which I would have just leave the chart and just wait until price get to my supply zone. What did I do after that? Why do I move down to 5 minute time frame? Right. The reason why I moved down to 5 minute time frame is to go down there and study what is going on in the internal structure range of this market, right? During Within this internal structure, right? What's going on within this swing high and low? What's going on within this range? Right. That's why I moved into the 5 minute time frame to understand this structure, right? To understand this internal structure, so I could know where it's valid and what price is currently doing, right? It's not about just the candle, right? It's about the meaning that you know it's about how you understand the market, right? It's about how you tend to understand market structure, because the key point here is market structure, right? And what I'm doing here is me observing the market structure, right? How I understand the market structure due to my experience and practice and all my data, and this is how I analyze market structure. And there are like three types of structure I looked out for in the market. Even there are three types of structure I looked out for in the market, which is the swing structure, the internal structure, and the fractal structure. And those fractal structure always found in will be on the 1 minute time frame, which is really fractal. And how I trade these three structure is just that, it's just how they align, they correlate, right? Right? It's just the correlations, right? Once I mark out my swing structure range, I will wait for price. Let's say on a bearish market, then I marked out my swing highs and low. Then after marking out my swings highs and low, I will then move to my medium time frame, right, to observe the internal structure, right. I will also have to analyze the internal structure to have the internal valid return structure range within the moving trend, right, within the swing structure range, to understand the internal structure. Once I understand the internal structure, what I do next is to then that's where you then either move down to 1 minute time frame to try to if the internal structure is still within the discount range. Let's say we are on a bearish market, we have a high, we have a low, and price is about making a pullback. If the internal structure is still within the discount range, the yeah, the discount range, right? What I will do is to mark out the valid recent structure range within the internal structure of the internal structure. Then after marking out the recent structure range of the internal structure, then I will then mark out my key point, key zone to key valid structure, key range to like internal swing high and internal low. Then I will then mark out my, since price is still at the discount range, then I will then mark out my valid point. Then after marking out my recent range, mark out my demand zone, observe the liquidity to an inducement, right? Because that's how I treat, that's how I stand. After marking out, let's say price is still at the discount range, I'll wait for price to that's how I tend to have a very kind of fast trade, right? That is how to you it might be fractal because it might be very hard to you guys to really understand. But this is how I study the market and I tend to understand the market. That's how I just have to that is how I grow my experience. I build my experience from. So let's just move to the chat and just focus on the review. I don't want to make this video like up to 30 minutes, right? I'm just gonna keep it short, right? Well, I know some of you might start feeling, boring, right? So that is it. That is it about market, right? You just really have to study how you understand chart every day, and not just once, not just observing the chart. You have to, constantly back testing and reviewing your trades to see where your mistakes are, and that's how I take my trade. That's how I handle my trading, right? So let's move in. Yeah, so what I did here after marking out the 15-minute highs and low is to move down to 5 minutes, right? Is to move down to 5 minutes, right? Excuse me. Good, 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 good. Is to move down to 5 minutes, right? Moving down to 5 minutes, and like what I just explained, I see this is the internal structure range, right? Everything within the swing structure is internal, right? Then everything within the internal structure is fractal. Do you get that? So just work on it. If you really understand market structure better, right? Just try to reason, think about what I just said, right? So what I do is to come down to understand the internal structure. So that's where I start, building narrative, building, you know, idea like trying to understand what price is doing. And here on the internal structure, we have a break, internal break, and price comes instead of reacting on this blow, react on price just instead of respecting this block, price just react on that block, and but there wasn't enough buying power at this point. Price had to push down and liquidate this low to have enough fuel to move to the upside. And after that liquidation was where we start having this huge spike. And during the pre-market analysis time, price was still ranging at this point. And at this point, what I do and try to, my outlook, my entry outlook at this point was to, was that I just had to, mark out this liquidation block, right? This liquidation block. This was like my kind of like pure I zone, but this was my POI zone, and this POI zone was only valid in a certain period of time, right? I wasn't This POI zone wasn't just a whole valid block. I wish price came to this supply zone. After coming to this supply zone, price just collapsed down. Trust me, this POI zone wouldn't have been valid, right? It wouldn't have been valid because the train is already buried, so there is no point of you trying to go long at this point. Even though it grab liquidity, it breaks structure, it's fine, but it's against the structure, the major structure, right? So that's just it, right? That's just it. So it wouldn't have been. So it was only valid for some period of time. That was during when price was at this point. And my bias at this point, my outlook at this point was that okay, let me refine this supply zone because I actually did that. I actually refined this supply zone to this single pivot candle, right? So that's in this candle, right? To that candle. So it's interesting, right? Once you understand the market structure and just not just the market structure yourself, your age, how you understand the market yourself, how you know the meaning it gives to chart and how you interact with the chart. Once you tend to trust me, you always tend to enjoy the process of learning and doing you on your mistakes and all that. And that's how I've been doing, right? So I had to refine this supply zone, right? After refining that supply zone, and that was my major point there, right? So after refining that supply zone, remember price was currently at this point. Then I was my outlook here, my entry outlook here was either from this consolidation, price comes down from this point to this POI zone, to this flip zone, or price move from here to this supply zone. Then we can then start having the sell, right? Because the trend is bearish, right? And this is the recent structure range we are currently at. If price break out of this block, break out of this 15-minute strong high, then we are bullish, right? We are bullish, right? So that's it, right? So that was my outlook at this point. Either price during at this consolidation rate, either price comes down to this zone or move up to this supply zone. Either of those two. If price move up, push down from there, I will likely, go on a short. I will go on short long, sorry, I'll buy at this point, at this POI zone, and target this supply zone, right? Supply zone, right? Why do I say that? Because I say that clearly because if you look where price is currently pulled back to before start coming down, you see that there is no clear supply zone at this point. All price action at this point is considered to be efficient, right? There is no orders at this point, right? There is no imbalance at this point. All, all price at this point. How do I even say this right for you guys? Right. So price action at this point is sufficient, is balanced, right? There is no imbalance. So all the order has so it doesn't make sense for price to just react from this and continue bearish. No, price has to seek liquidity. Even though price has to you know respect this block and fall down, price would have just you would have seen something like kind of liquidity build, like liquidity grab equal low, get second, and price just collapse down. Right, that's what you would have seen. But at this point, price action at that point is efficient, so there is no clear supply zone. This is the only point where we have a valid supply zone. Yeah, this is the only point we have a clear valid supply zone, and that's where I was looking at. So if price would have fall from here, then I would look for buy entry at this point and then target this supply zone. Right. So that was it. So within a few minutes, price just starts spiking up. Right. I see price spike up, and this is where I took my first short position. After price spike up to this supply zone, this is where things become very interesting, right? I hope you guys can relate and understand what I'm saying, right? So that's it. So once price immediately price get to this supply zone, I wasn't panic yet, right? I wasn't really worried like trying to jump in on a short position. I looked out for confirmation too. Since price has get to that point, I need to see kind of liquidity grab and kind of structural sign that will tell me that price gonna fall bearish at this point. And why do I got in on that sale was that, let me just zoom in very well. This is the supply zone, right? And we have price first reaction. This was price first mitigation of that supply zone. Price mitigate that supply zone. This was the first mitigation of that supply zone. Then price comes down, then after coming down within it, I wasn't planning to go on a short, right? I was looking out for confirmation at this point, right? And the confirmation I was looking out for was something like this. Let's say this is the supply zone, and this is price heading to that supply zone. What I was looking out for was price mitigating that supply zone, comes down, grab that first mitigation, and come down. That how this liquidation, that's how I would have just enter at this point, stop loss above this high because it already, that's the liquidation candle, and target just below, right? That's the entry, that's the confirmation I looked out for, right? And what happened? But since there was still enough buying power in the market, that did not happen. That actually happened, and that's the reason why I jumped in on that short position. We have price first mitigation, comes down, pull pushed up again and liquidate this first mitigation. This is we have price, mitigate this first liquidate this first mitigation of that supply zone, right? And wick above it, not just close above it, price wick above that. That was a kind of like signal to me to go on a short, and that is the reason why I go on that short. already the train is buried. So I was, trying to like flow with the train, right? But I was wrong at this moment because sellers at this point was still very massively, right? So I wasn't patient enough. Like what I do, like I wasn't patient. The best way would have go about this position would have been me to expect this zone to get taken, right? I would have clearly expect price to, come down after liquidating this high. That was nice. I would have be patiently wait for price to come down and take out this low. I wish price, comes down like this is what I mean. Price mitigate the supply zone, comes down, push up again, liquidate this high, right? Then comes down, take out this. This would have been a very best and perfect time to, just expect price to, push up to the supply zone, then go bearish. That would have been that is the confirmation I always look out for once price gets to my design point of interest, right? So I wasn't patient, but because of these liquidations and this pin bar candle, right, and that doji indecision candle was why I got in on my first short position, right? Trust me, even you, this is a real time market, right? So you have to, you know, you don't, you have to, just have to somehow, you just have to sometimes, feel like you trying to like just go since the price is already at your point. You might also have this urge of going and not missing so you don't miss the move, right? But what I did here was was still I was just say still okay because I have the weak liquidation rejections at the supply zone. That was a signal to me to go on that short position and that's why I did. But the only thing I did wrong at this point was me not being patient enough to hold on for price to come down and take out this low, right? Take out this low. Because I wish price, just drop down and take out this low. It would have been perfect to look for short, then that go lower. That would have been it. So at this point, this is where I got it, and my stop loss was just above that liquidation candle. It wasn't too far. Right then, my target was this block because the train is bearish. Then I'm expecting to, drive price down. My target wasn't clearly this block, right? It was about 1 is to 4 is to reward. It was about 1 is to 4 is to reward. That is what this is my, you know, my minimum, risk to reward, trade, right? So this is it. This is how I got it on my first trade, which end up very lost, which you can see at this point. Oh shit. Which you can see at this point. This was how the trade was like, and this is how I got it. And price just, range a little bit at this point. And I did not just, after going on this short, trust me, since I wasn't patient enough to wait for price to, break this low and tell me that sellers are, getting into the market, right? What I did was to, after getting on that short, was to move down to 1 minute time frame. Remember, this is the high. This is a valid high, and this is an invalidation point, right? If price break out of this 15-minute strong high, 15-minute swing high, right? If price break out of this high, then the trend is totally, we can then expect bullish in the market. So since price was still within this range, since price was still within the discount range, that's why I moved down to 1 minute, and that's where I got in on my second position. And trust me, the second position actually moved well, right? The second position actually go as planned based on structure and understanding of liquidity and also the since price was still within the supply zone, right? Within the supply zone, right? This is it, you know, this is it, right? Price was after I got in on that sell position, right? This is the trade right here. After I got in on that sell position, notice how price notice how price was falling down, right? Then after coming down, after moving down to this point, price then pushed up again, then pushing up again. Price feel this imbalance at this point, and this was the only block that would have hold price to return collapse very massively bearish, right? And what happened? Price move up, price move up at this point and mitigate this other block, mitigate that supply zone. Right after that mitigation, that zone give a reaction, right? And that tells me something, right? After seeing that reaction there, that tells me something, right? Already we are still very heavily bullish, right? We are still heavily bullish in the short term, right? At this point on the that which was the pullback, but at this current price point, we were still heavily bearish, and buyers were still, hitting the price, battling with sellers at this point, even as price gets to this supply zone, right? So immediately I see this, bearish sign, respect of this block. I see this Immediately I see this and price, this was a valid point to hold for price to remain bearish, like I said, right? Immediately I see this respect, this reaction on that supply zone, and have this massive candle pushed up. That's where I notice that this trade is no more valid, right? That's where I notice that I, you know that this price gonna eat my SL straight up, right? That's when I noticed that price gonna eat my SL, and there is no point after understanding this and noticing this. There is no point for me to just keep holding and just let price hit my SL. I have to go in and close the trade, right? I close the trade around this point, right? This is where I close the trade. Sorry, yes. This is where I close the trade. Oh, excuse me. Okay. So this is where I close the trade. I close the trade around this point, right? Because I couldn't just hold the price. I think I got in somewhere. Yeah, I couldn't just hold the price to just go eat my SL. Right? I have to just cut my losses very short, right? Close the trade. After closing the trade, trust me, I was still expecting sell in this market still. I was still expecting sell in this market, right? I was still expecting this supply zone to hold. Even as price, break out of this supply zone, but it was still below this line. Right? Price was still below this line, which means that this is still the supply zone, right? A range. But since this supply zone has failed, price has just break and close above the supply zone. That was another thing too. That was another signal too. But since I was still heavily on bearish, still I was still since I was still expecting bearish to happen in the market, right? I was still focusing on that bearish, right? I was still expecting bearish sellers to come in, but I have to, observe price closely. Even after I close the loss. I have to still observe price closely. And what happened was that after price, break out of this point, give us this high, price comes down and range within this point. After price, just range a little bit at this point within that range, and trust me, this was a high, this was a low, and this was a new high that price just give. And on this 1 minute time frame, this is a structure I consider to be fractal, right? So this is where it become interesting, right? I keep observing the fractal structure, and price pullback range around this point, then drop a week and liquidate this low, which led price to mitigate this fractal demand zone, right? Still within the supply zone, right? After that mitigation, what happened? Price spike up, comes down, react on that liquidation block, and goes up. What I was expecting at this point was for price to go boom. Then I know that we are, then know that we are officially bullish in this market, right? That was what I expecting. I was expecting price after doing this. I was expecting price to just blow up and take out this high, right? But that did not happen. Right? What happened here was this. I marked out this fractal high, and it's still within the supply zone. It's still within the supply zone. That's why I was still expecting bearish, and I couldn't just have to jump in. I have to look for a structure. I have to observe the structure and understand what is really going on in the market so I can be on the right side in the market. Right. So immediately I marked out this eye. So at some point price, just spike up and take out this eye. Right. Take out that wasn't a break, right? Though price break and close above it. I was closely observing price, right? Because I needed to, sell this market, right, at this supply zone. So what I do see was price, how price, break above this high. Immediately price break out of this high. Price just, tend to, give this, rejection, right? Because if price has to take out this high price, there is no point for price to just break a little bit and just consolidate and fall from that point. There is no point. Price would have just break out and keep going up. So immediately I see how price, tend to react at this block. That's where I just have to go in on the short position, right? That's what I mean. That's why I say this was an induce. This was the liquidation, right? This was still a liquidation. So immediately I see price take out that point and start ranging. That's when and this price, the web immediately okay, this was immediately I see this bearish candle just fall after price break a little bit above this high and just range struggle a lot before falling down. Immediately I see this bearish candle, I know that price gonna fall down. Right, that's where I jumped in. I was to go in at this point, right? I was to go in at this point and my SL above this high, my SL above this high, and on this trade, right? That's how it was, right? My SL above the I and it was, yeah, 4 pips stop loss, right? It was 4 pips stop loss. So once I try to like open my MT5, go to place a trade, put in my lot size and click on that sell position. Immediately I click sell. That's when price spike up to this point. Immediately I click sell, my price did not feel at this point because at this point price was still very, still struggling to go down. So immediately I click sell. That was when price, spike that bullish candle. This was when this second bullish candle opened and spike up, and the trade was filled at somewhere here, somewhere at this point, right? And my SL was, and the trade got filled at this point. Right. This is a clear breakdown and a clear breakdown on the trade I post on my X. Someone sees that and comment something. Right. I wish I responded to that very family because what I think it feel like it was a lock or it was just, what lock means for traders. Lock happen for not for gamblers, right? For pro traders, luck happens when preparation meet opportunity, right? I observe the structure and I understand the structure. I see what I was looking for, and this thing happened still at the supply zone, right? That's why I was still eager to go on the short position. That's my reason of selling that trade, right? So it might be different from yours, right? But this is my trading style. This is how I understand the market, and this is how I trade every day, right? This is how I understand my market structure, and I follow up every day, right? Immediately I got in, you can check that out on this photo, right? Excuse me. Okay, okay, okay. Imagine the stop loss, right? This is how it was. What the hell is that? Storage full. Hey guys, sorry, my mic just off. I need to edit time. Storage full. Need now. Excuse me, guys. I need to return on my mic. Alright, guys. Sorry, my my camera just off. Okay. So so this is it. You can observe you can you can see the stop loss, the entry, and how precise that was. That was the reason why the entry got and the stop loss got that, and it was about 2 pips, right? I was trying to reach the amount I was trying to reach was calculate on the 4 pip range. Then immediately I click that position, that sell, the and price got filled like this. I have to add 1.1483, right? So that was it. So my price got filled at that point 1.483, just wherever. And this is where I already the trade was about 1:6 weeks to reward. The trade was 1:6 weeks to reward, and that was very clear. Sorry guys, not all. I'm trying to I'm trying to summarize this. Right. This was just what happened on Monday. Right. This was just what happened on Monday, and trust me, I always try to take time to really study my behavior, what I did in the market, and to really understand better where my deviation is, right? Where my mistakes come from, right? That is how I right every day. The trade was 1:4, it's 1:6. Okay, it was about yeah, it was 6 pip. Also, this was the low, right? Uh this was where my target was. This was where my target was. And as price get to that point, and this was like a valid kind of demand zone still at this point, right? And this is where I was like, if price should break out of this point, I was like, if price should break out of this point and just pop, that we're gonna continue bearish, right? I wasn't left to be sincere. I wasn't even tend to like close the sell position at this point, right? I was still like, let me see price, fall down. But at some point, I have to, realize what's the point of holding when I can just, what's the point of, trying to, be certain when you have already been on a good, on a good risk to reward on if despite the small like the reason why I was trying to like let me just say greed. My greed was trying to, make me, believe that price gonna keep falling when I'm already on 1:6, bro, I have to just close the trade, right? Just close the trade, and this is where I close the trade at 1:6, not 1:7, right? This is where during that's so and demand zone, right? Fractal demand zone, and this is how I close the trade. And immediately I close the trade, I was still believing that price is gonna, keep going down. But what happened? Price then move up and take out the eye. The 15 minute swing eye. After price, takes out the 15 minute swing high, what happened? Price just fall from there. Price just, keep going up from there. Sorry. Right. After price, takes out this high, I didn't know that we are now bullish in the market. And that's where price, tend to, start giving this reaction right at this point because this was where, liquidity, this was where there was a lot of battle like going on before the seller just take out the overwhelm dominate the market, just buyer sorry takes control and just drive price to the upside, and price comes up has to respect this block. This is why we have it equally, and price liquidate and keep going. Trust me, what time was this? This was about 4 p.m, right? This is about 4 p.m. This happened about 4 p.m. on Monday, right? But at this point, take, I don't trade at this point, right? I just have to, be okay with be okay with the 1:6 and just observe, wait for the next day. Not trying to, jump in and feel like I know everything in the market. No. Of course, I've learned my lesson the hard way. Okay. So this was the everything that happens on Monday, and how I, formulate my bias and how I tend to, take that sell position. Still, I hope you guys really understand now the reason why I got in on that sell position. And that's just it. No much, no much, kind of things out, no much, kind of fancy stuff about that. But that's just, it's just based on experience, right? And what I've experienced and learned the hard way and what I know to be true for me. Right? So you too might, will also find your own truth, and how would you find your own truth? By experience, right? And how will you have the experience? Having the courage to, click the buy and sell button, do your analysis, and how do you even tend to know how to do your analysis? By learning. You learn, you study, you try to understand everything, you try to learn all strategy you have to learn, right? Like at your beginner level, and this goes to beginner, right? This goes to beginner. You just start. I know you might, encountering like a lot of strategies. Just learn whatsoever interests you. Someone do and it interests you, even on YouTube, anywhere. Just learn, study the stuff, understand. At some point, you find another thing again that look interesting, bro. Keep studying, because in 1 year, after like 6 months, study of 6 months, 1 year, like, bro, you start to, come like bringing them together. You start understanding the chart, even on those indicator aspects. When I started trading first, I use a lot of indicator on my chart and try to, because that's what I learned, right, from my mentors, right, from my role model, right. That's how I learn. And also different concept, ICT and everything, and ICT, SMC, even retail, normal retail, support and resistance, break and retail, chart formations, and all this kind of chart pattern, head and shoulder, all these kinds of chart pattern. I learn all of those stuff, right? But is it what I'm trading now? It's not what I'm trading now. This is me sitting up and just bringing everything I need together to, bring out my edge to see. I understand this better. I understand this better. I understand this. I understand this market structure. Okay, let me sit up and just filter these informations and just find out what works for me. And this happened after like almost 3 years of constant learning, right? 3 years, and I'm still on the mid of 3 years going. Well, I think September will make me fully 3 years. And that the reason why I say 3 years was when I start, committing, giving Forex my every day, every time, every minute, every hour, right? Forget about knowing Forex. I've known Forex for 5 years now, 6 years now. But I'm talking about when I start committing, like start learning the stuff, the main when I start, see that this is my profession, right? This is what I'm this is what good for me. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy being my own boss. I enjoy, working, like I enjoy, trying to like doing my own things without having anybody, command all these things. So what happened? I tend to lock in and, lock in since 2023 and try to, 2023 and 2022, let's say 2023, and just tend to, lock in and try focus studying, started, researching and reading, doing many things to just to know what I need to know to start, making this. Trust me, it wasn't about making money. It wasn't about making money. And why am I saying this? Let me just summarize the video. You guys might not like to hear all these things, but it's just a journey. It's just a journey. It's just the process of, you know, and that's how it is when you are so passionate and really, take things very, go all in, and choose to have the reason why, because I have my reason why I'm doing this day and night, right? You also have your reason of coming. If you are just here to make money, bro, trust me, you will run. Good. All right. Okay, this was about Monday trade and everything, right? So about Tuesday, there's nothing much on Tuesday, right? I didn't do anything much on Tuesday, right? Tuesday was just me reflecting, and because I actually marked out my POIs, my structures, and expect price to pull back to those zones, and I didn't see price, comes back to those zones. And what did I do? I tend to, what did I do? I just have to, just stay away from the market since I was still expecting the major trend. Since price was on the pullback way, since I was still expecting the major trend to move into a premium range, right? So there was no trade opportunity for me yesterday, right? Except on BTC. I took a buy position on BTC. And let me see if I can bring back all this chat I just said. Right? Bro, this video is more than 1 hour now. It should be more than 1 hour. My mic is off. My camera is off. I'm gonna bring back all the analysis and everything. Oh, oh. So guys, this is how I do my review every day after trading, and this is how I tend to learn to know better. Right? I don't have a mentor. I don't have a mentor. I don't even have someone. I don't even have money to afford mentorship. Right? So, and what do I even need from mentor? I know what to do already. I know what to make me profitable. Right? I know it. I know what will make me profitable. Right? I know everything that will make me profitable. I know the step I will follow to make me profitable. How do I know this? All the professionals already, like the level, like Abby Forex, Jeff, and all trading jig, Brett Go, and all my role models out there, right? They have already outlined all those things. They keep saying this thing, and if you want to achieve success in a specific field, right? Trust me, you know what to do. Looking for mentor is just like you are lazy to do the discovering by yourself. To just discipline yourself. Just trying to you are looking for a shortcut, but still on still, even though you still find that mentor, you still need to do the work. Right? You still need to do what you have to do. And even at last, it's not even your mentor this thing that will make you profitable. Right? It's not even your mentor that will make you profitable. It's you that will make you profitable. Okay. Okay. I think I've been able to bring back the chat. This was my analysis. This was since yesterday, and this was the zone I was still expecting price to push back to go on a long position. I think I placed a limit order and I'm running on profit on this trade. But trust me, on the higher time frame, price has already moved into the premium range. So we could see price, just collapse. I've managed my risk, and I've managed my risk. But at this point, what I'm expecting to go on a buy position. But trust me, if I was actively on chart during this time, during when price gets to this supply zone, for what happened at this point, we have equal high at this point, and at some point price go back and liquidate that equal high before start. So at this point, would have gotten on my sell position at this point, but I wasn't active, right? So that just said about that's just how my strategy. That not this is just how my age. This is just how I understand the market and tend to trade. So yesterday, which was Tuesday, there wasn't much opportunity in the market, right? So I just had to stay out of the market because this was the zone I was expecting price to pull back to yesterday, but that did not happen. But today, I'm seeing price falling after mitigating 4 hour range supply zone. We're at 1 hour supply zone, major key zone, right? And we start having that huge, massive fall. And so, but at this point, if I'm to sell price, it's already out of my time zone, my trading window, right? But this, I'll just keep this buy position open without price either sell. But I might just tend to go down to 1 minute to understand the structure. Like I always that just it. That's just how I understand my market structure. So guys, that will be the end of this record. For God's sake, this long day record. So I hope you guys have time to just go through this and just study. If you are watching up to this point, trust me, bro. Trust me. If you are up to this point, bro, trust me. Like you are really really gonna do well, right? You're really gonna do it. Just keep going, and trust me, I don't have anyone to motivate me, right? Everyone that's selling courses, like everyone, ego, like level forex trader, you know how it is. Level forex trader is about money. If you need the attention, you will pay. So, you know, that's just how, even to share experience like this, to even have a basic knowledge, like a basic information on how your ideology view chart and all the stuff, you go pay. So I'm not that kind of person. I'm not here to do that, right? I'm just here to document and help the people that need help, right? Helps the ones that need help, just trying to record my trip. This is not I don't do this for any kind of reason. I'm doing this for myself, right? I'm doing this to help my growth, to learn fast, right? That's why I'm doing this, right? So you guys can do your review and just keep going. Track your trade. This is how I track my trades. I record my trade, and this will be the end of this video, guys. Have a blessed week, right? It's Wednesday already. It's Wednesday already. So guys, I think I will leave it. I will leave. So have a nice day, guys, and it's good, bro.